Hi and welcome to Gin Fun at winemastery.co.uk. This is going to be a really exciting episode for you. Derek is going to tell us how you make gin in just a second.
Hi everybody and welcome to the Spirit of Masham Distillery. I'm just going to briefly take you through a little journey of how we make our gins and how they're put together. The first thing that we do, we actually create our own demineralised water, and we have a system over in the corner that takes out the impurities of the water that comes from Masham. So we use Masham water to create our gin, and it goes through several filtrations, 6 different filters. The first process is to take out the large physical solids that are in there. So when the water comes into our distillery, it's coming in around about 150 to 160 parts per million dissolved solids. So that's bits and pieces that are in your water. It's perfectly palatable water, it's potable, and it can't cause you any harm. But we need to take all those things out. And the first reason why we take them out, we take out things like calcium and we take out line scale, because we don't want our lovely stills to build up with furrings as you would get in your kettle. So they're as clean as the day that they were first brought into the distillery, because we take that out of the process. The next things we take out are all the other bits. So essentially we filter out magnesium, copper, all the other things that are in your water, fluoride, etc. And we end up with something that is less than 1 part per million dissolved solids. So it's pure water, it's just H2O. So the first reason, so we don't silt up our stills. The second reason is so we don't have any of those chemicals or minerals, salts, etc. in the distillation process. So we don't want those affecting our botanical flavours or adding anomalies in there so it changes per distillation. So it gives us that really pure water. And then the third reason, the final reason, if you can imagine, we've distilled our lovely gin, we put it in a bottle and it's on a shelf just waiting for you to get there to buy it. You pick the bottle up, and if you tilted it on one side, you'd see a little halo, a little ring, where those salts and other materials will have stuck to the side of the bottle. And we don't want that either. So that's why we use demineralised water. And from here on in, I'll just call it demin, because that's what we call it. Demineralised water is demin. So we take some of that demineralised water and we put it into the still. And here we've got little Stan, and so called because he is the smallest of the two, and he's what we started off with. And he's a 20-litre still. And he's called Little Stan because he stands still. He's little and he doesn't go anywhere. So it's Stan still. And when we got the bigger still, which is a 200-litre still, which is 10 times bigger than Middle Stan, we just called him Big Stan. We're very inventive with our names. So we would either use whichever still we're going to be using, and we'll put in an amount of demineralised water, demin. We then take some of our lovely spirit. So we use neutral grain spirit. That comes in from a company called Harle Chemia, and they make a really, really good quality premium ethanol, essentially. It's over 96% proof. So we put some of that in and balance that in the still with the demineralised water. Then we put in all our lovely botanicals, dependent on which gin we're going to produce at the time. If it's our original gin, we would put in kilos and kilos of our masala chai tea. Then we put in hops, then we will put in all the other things that are going to make a lovely gin. So you've got juniper, coriander seed, you've got peels, angelica, etc., etc. That all goes into the still. And when he's full, he's around to about this seam area here. So we don't fill him right the way up, we leave a little bit of headroom in the still. We'll then put the top on, and the top is called the onion head, for obvious reasons, it looks like an onion. And then once that's on, we then re-put in the swan's neck, and then the still is assembled. We turn on the heat underneath and heat up the still. And when we're heating that still up, it takes around about an hour for Big Stan to get up to temperature. And the temperature we're looking for is around about 80 degrees C. And around about 79.4, I think is the exact number, but around about 80 degrees C, the alcohol starts to evaporate off. And that evaporation pulls with it some of the flavours from the botanicals, which are now at 80 degrees doing a soft, gentle rolling boil. So it's a very gentle process. That then lifts off those botanical flavours into the vapour that's created. And that vapour then circulates around inside of the top of the still. It finds it difficult to get down this bendy pipe at the top, the swan's neck. And that constant scrolling around in top of the still passes over all those lovely botanical notes into that vapour. And that is called reflux. And that reflux is the essence where that happens. So eventually the vapour does travel down the swan's neck and into what we call the condenser. And the condenser just has cold water going in at the bottom and warmer water going off at the top. And this pipe coils its way down through the condenser and comes out through this little fellow here. And we actually can take measurements out of here with a meter to see what the alcohol level's like. And then we're taking off out of here, out of this parrot's beak, into a container. And that is the high-strength gin. So the process goes into here as vapour. It cools down because of the water surrounding the pipework, and that causes the vapour to condense back into a liquid, and that liquid comes out as high-strength gin. So when we're actually producing our gin, we take different cuts, and the cuts in gin are up to the distiller. And they're going to take those cuts, they're going to make those choices where it suits their gin best. And the way that we do it on flavour. We don't actually do it on the amount of volume that we produce, the alcohol content, or the time that it's run. It's done purely on flavour. So we'll produce for so long, and that first bit is called heads. And the heads, historically, would have had some of those nastier elements in there, things like methanol, which turns you blind, and acetol that doesn't do your organs any good. But the spirit that we're using is very, very pure, and it doesn't have those issues with those higher ethanols. So essentially, we're doing our heads cut purely for flavour, and to make sure we've got a nice clean spirit coming through. So at a certain point, we know where that change is going to take in terms of flavour profile. So we'll take some samples off the still, and we'll line them up in little glasses and beakers along this side here. We'll tip them into the glasses, and we'll start tasting. And we're looking for the right flavour notes in the gin. And when Jake, our distiller, and I are doing that tasting, we're looking for a particular note. So we'll maybe find it perhaps in this glass here. And we'll then debate how much of that flavour that we want is in that glass. So if it's not too pronounced, we may well think that's still heads, and we'll push it this way, and everything we produce to start with is heads, and then the hearts, the bit we want to keep, starts there. If perhaps there's quite a lot of what we're looking for, that particular flavour note in there, we may well push it that way, and this would become heads, and that would become hearts. So that's how we make that decision process, and it's all made around one glass, and that's where we make that choice. So we then collect the hearts, and those hearts are coming off the still, and we transfer them into stainless steel tanks that we store that high-strength gin in. And the gin itself is coming off, and we start, for rough figures, so you can get your head around it, taking around about 84% ABV, and we continue taking that gin off the still until we get around a roughly, so you can get your head around it, 79% ABV. It's not a fixed number, it varies and moves and changes slightly. And that's because the flavours we're looking for have to be just right when we make that change. So when we get to that point, we'll line up the glasses again, we'll do another tasting, and at that point we'll say that's where the cut is. And that cut means the hearts are on the left-hand side and they're kept, and the tails are on the right-hand side are discarded. At that point, we turn the heat up on the still, and we then just blow out or discharge the rest of the alcohol. And we do keep detailed notes of that alcohol all the way through that process, through production and through doing the tails run for HMRC. They have to know every single detail, and rightly so, because there's a high-value product we're making. So the tails then go and are stored with the heads, the other bit that's discarded, and then that will be shipped back to Hayman Chemia at some point when we get enough. And that's turned into other things like hand wash, windscreen wiper washer fluid, and other things that can be used of a lower grade. So the alcohol doesn't get wasted. It just means we don't have to pay the duty on it, which is a nice thing to have. And that's why you need what we have here, a bonded warehouse. And that bond allows us to produce in what we call duty suspension. So we're taking those hearts off, and those hearts actually go into a tank over here. We keep those. and the tails are segregated off at the end. What we do at the end of that process is we have all our hearts. And since we're taking off roughly between 84% and 79% ABV, our hearts on average are around about 80-81% ABV. We then demineralise that down. In other words, we use demin, the demineralised water, to bring it down to what we call bottling strength, because we're up there at 80-odd% ABV. We can't really send it out to customers like that. It's just a bit too strong. But I'm sure some of you would like to try it. We have to. Then we take that down in small increments down to just above bottling strength. So our bottling strength is 42%, so we take it down to around about 43% in little increments over a period of about a week, and then leave it to sit for another week. So after 2 weeks, we're ready to bottle that gin. And that gin is then made freely available to people to purchase once we paid the duty. Our gins are available off our website, from our shop in Masham. We go out to quite a few farm shops, and we go out to Campbell's of Labourn, Lewis and Cooper's in Northallerton. We go out to Wensleydale Creamery, Drinkswell in Ripon. So it's relatively local. We don't go too far out. You won't find our gins in any of the major multiples or supermarkets. We only sell to independents. So you might have to dig a little bit hard to find our gin, but it certainly will be worth finding when you get there. So you can order online if you wish at corksandcases.com. Thank you very much.